Hi, I'm going to talk to you about servicing your EV2 FTP900 regulator for your Air Arms. Basically, this is the regulator removed from the rifle. You may or may not have noticed when you first fitted it that it is actually in two pieces. So basically, that's the regulator, that's the housing. We'll start off with the regulator. To service this, you're going to need a pair of circlip pliers to remove the circlip that's holding the piston in. There you go, circlip out the way. There is a threaded hole in here that you can use for pulling the piston out using an M3 bolt. I've just got one fitted into this little tool just to make it easier, and that pops out. And you'll see the little plastic disc stuck to that, that's fine. Right, there are a number of disc springs or bevel washers fitted to the piston. That's what gives it the spring. And there's two O-rings. There's a small one and a larger one. In the regulator service kit that you get, there's two small O-rings and then a few of different sizes. Basically, the one small O-ring replaces the piston O-ring, and then the larger one replaces the one on the back of the piston. Just a note on these, you do get different thicknesses of disc spring, and they can be stacked differently depending on the pressure setting of the regulator, the pressure range. Generally speaking, these are all the same, but on some of the other HuMa regulators for the FAC rifles, they are different. So just bear in mind that if you whip these off, there is a chance that you can put them back on the wrong way. These particular ones are stacked 2 discs that way, 2 discs that way, 2 discs that way. There's 6 in total. Right, so once you've replaced the O-rings, make sure that there's no fluff or dirt or anything in and around the O-rings. That's ready to go back in. Make sure that's all nice and clean and no dirt or debris. Your little plastic disc needs to pop back in first, and just make sure that's seated in the bottom of the hole, and then your piston's ready to go back in, and then your circlip can go back in. Just double check that the circlip's properly seated in the groove. You don't want that popping out. There we go. Then the main body O-ring is obviously the largest one in the set. You can replace that. And these normally come with a pressure scale sticker on them, something like these, which gives you an idea of the pressure that it's been set to. But that scale only works for where it's currently set, and I'll explain shortly. If you want to replace the O-ring on the actual adjuster, this is the adjuster, then I would recommend using something accurate like the this vernier, digital vernier, or a micrometer or something similar. Measure how far the adjuster is sticking out of the body, 2.1 millimeters. I'm going to double check that just to be sure. We need to be pretty accurate, 2.09, so I'm happy that that is about where it needs to be. Then you need a flat-bladed screwdriver that fits in there nicely, and you can remove that adjuster. The adjuster pulls out. That O-ring can be replaced with the other small O-ring in the kit. Again, just make sure everything's nice and clean and your little plastic disc is seated properly, and then you can pop that back in. Now, this is where we need to be careful, otherwise our pressure setting will be wrong and your rifle won't work as well as you expect. Turn it into roughly where you think it should be. We're looking for 2.09 millimeters, so that's currently 2.4, so we need to go in a little bit further. 2.12, so we are a tiny bit away. Nope, that was too much. Right, just a note on, if you are undoing this, go past where you think it should be and then turn it back to where you want it to be. Basically that sorts out the backlash in the thread, which is just basically the tolerance in the thread. Right, 2.2 again, so we want to go in a tiny bit more. 2.13, so we need to go in a tiny bit. It is critical that you get this as close as possible to the measurement that it was. Obviously, if you've got the pressure scale on here, you can, for this last little bit, you could just make sure that the line lines up with the pressure that you want it set at, which is typically 85 bar with the FTPs. So you could just line that up with the 85 bar on the sticker once you've got to this point. Obviously I haven't got a sticker on this one yet because it hasn't been sent out. 2.11, so that is pretty much there, give or take a bar. There we go, super. Right, that's the regulator serviced and set. Now on the body, you'll notice there's an O-ring inside the body which needs to be replaced. Obviously you use a tool that is not going to damage the body, and then pick out the O-ring and replace it with the second largest thin O-ring that's in the set. Obviously this one's never been used, so I'm not going to take it out. Just when you fitted it, just make sure it's seated nicely. You can use a product like SM50 or a silicone O-ring lube on your O-rings throughout. And then there is another O-ring on here which is also part of the kit. This is seals between the regulator and the breech block. And then basically that's it. And then you can pop the two back together. You'll notice there's a groove in the actual threads. This is just to allow the air to vent to atmosphere. It doesn't matter whether this is, if the hole in this regulator lines up with that or not. High pressure air being high pressure air, it'll find its own way out because obviously there's no O-ring on here. It's just basically just to help it breathe without any restrictions in case somebody's lathered it in silicone grease or something. But there we go. That's your HuMa EV2 FTP regulator serviced and ready to be fitted back in the rifle. If for whatever reason it's gone horribly wrong and you've serviced it and you just can't get it right and you can't get it to seal or whatever else, it's not the end of the world. It is possible to service these. I can repair them for you. There is a service available via the online store on my website, where you send me your regulator. I completely replace all the seals, the plastic disc, and then rebuild it, set it to the pressure setting that you would like, and test it and make sure it's all fine. I then post it back to you and you can then just fit it straight into your rifle. Thanks very much.